The night my stepmother told me I wasn't really family, the house was so quiet I could hear every small sound. The refrigerator clicking. The clock ticking in the living room. Even my own breathing felt too loud. I was standing in the hallway with one suitcase at my feet. Just one. Old. Scratched. The zipper barely worked. A gray sock was sticking out of the side, like it was trying to escape. I didn't push it back in. I couldn't make myself care. She stood near the kitchen table, arms crossed, leaning slightly on one hip. Calm. Clean. Controlled. She wasn't angry. That was the worst part. You should go tonight, she said. Her voice was flat. Like she was reminding me to take out the trash. I looked at her face, searching for something. Guilt. Sadness. Anything. There was nothing there. You're not really family, she added. My father had been dead for 3 weeks. 3 weeks since the hospital room smelled like chemicals and cold air. 3 weeks since the machines kept beeping even after his eyes stopped moving. 3 weeks since I stood there, frozen, while a nurse gently pulled the sheet over his face. I still heard his cough in my head. I still expected his footsteps at night. I still reached for my phone to call him before remembering there was no one to answer. And now I was being told I didn't belong. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't ask questions. My body felt heavy, like someone had filled me with wet sand. I just nodded slowly, like a child being scolded. Okay, I said. She watched me for a second, maybe surprised I didn't argue. Then she turned away, already done with me. That's something people don't understand later. They always ask why I didn't fight back. Why I didn't demand my share. Why I didn't scream. But grief makes you small. And fear makes you quiet. And I had learned to be quiet very well. The house didn't feel like mine anymore. It smelled like her candles. Strong, sweet, fake. The windows were open even though it was cold outside. My dad used to hate that. He said cold air made his joints ache. She opened them anyway now. Things had changed fast after he died. New curtains appeared. White and expensive. The old brown couch was gone. So was the picture of me and my dad at the lake. I noticed that earlier that day. The empty spot on the wall hurt more than I expected. I had lived in that house since I was 10 years old. My real mother left when I was 8. No goodbye. No explanation. Just a note on the counter and silence after. My dad tried to do everything himself for a while. Then he met her. At first, my stepmother smiled a lot. Too much. She hugged me when other people were around. She called me sweetheart in front of friends. But when it was just us, her eyes changed. She never yelled. She never hit me. She did something quieter. She reminded me I didn't belong. That's your father's room, she'd say. Not yours. Don't touch that. It's not for you. You should be grateful we took you in. Took me in. Like a favor. Like I was temporary. My dad tried to keep peace. He worked long hours. He was always tired. When I tried to tell him something felt wrong, he'd sigh and say, "She doesn't mean it like that. Just don't take it personally." So I stopped taking anything personally. I learned how to be invisible. How to walk quietly. How to eat fast and leave the table first. How to say, "I'm fine," and mean, "Please don't ask." Years passed that way. Then my dad got sick. At first it was small. A cough that wouldn't go away. Then he lost weight. His face changed. At night I'd see him sitting at the kitchen table, staring at his coffee, not drinking it. My stepmother took control of everything. Appointments. Papers. Phone calls. "You don't need to worry about this," she told me. Adults will handle it. At the hospital, she answered questions before I could speak. When doctors asked about family history, she said, "No," without looking at me. I was standing right there. The day my father died, she cried loudly. People noticed her pain. Nurses brought tissues. Someone held her hand. I stood by the window and watched the rain slide down the glass. No one looked at me. After the funeral, the house felt empty in a different way. People stopped calling. Silence filled the rooms. My stepmother stopped pretending. She locked doors. Moved documents. Took phone calls behind closed doors. When I asked what would happen to me, she said, "We'll talk later." Later never came. Until that night. I zipped my suitcase even though it was already full. The zipper resisted. My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't take a full breath. "You can take your clothes," she said. Nothing else. I didn't ask about my father's watch. Or his books. Or the photos in the garage. I already knew. When I stepped outside, the cold hit me hard. The porch light buzzed above my head. I stood there for a second, hoping, stupidly, that she'd say something else. She didn't. The door closed. And just like that, my entire life fit into one suitcase. I walked down the driveway without a plan. My phone battery was low. No messages. No missed calls. I remember thinking, very clearly. This is how people disappear. I didn't know yet that she had already made a fatal mistake. I just didn't know it would take years for the truth to catch up to her that I didn't have a plan when I left that house. Just one suitcase and a cold night. I stood at the end of the driveway for a long time, staring at the street like it might give me an answer. The neighborhood was quiet. Yellow lights in windows. Someone laughing far away. Life going on like nothing had just ended for me. I checked my phone. 11% battery. No messages. No missed calls. No one waiting for me anywhere. I started walking. I don't even remember where I thought I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay there. Every step felt unreal, like I was watching myself from far away. My hands were numb. My chest hurt in a dull, constant way. I ended up at the bus station near downtown. It smelled like oil and old coffee. A man was sleeping on a bench, his jacket pulled over his face. The digital clock above the platforms flickered like it might die at any second. I sat down on the floor and pulled my suitcase close to my legs. That was the first night I understood what it really meant to be alone. I didn't sleep much. Every time my eyes closed, I saw my father's face. Pale. Still. Or my stepmother's eyes when she said those words. "You're not really family." In the morning, my phone was dead. I walked to a coffee shop and asked if I could charge it. The girl behind the counter nodded without really looking at me. I sat in the corner, watching people come and go. They all seemed busy. Important. Like they belonged somewhere. When my phone turned on, there was still nothing. I texted the only number I still had memorized. An old friend from school. We hadn't talked in years. "Hey. This is weird. But I don't really have a place right now." She replied an hour later. "I'm sorry. I'm staying with my boyfriend's family. It's complicated." I stared at the screen for a long time before putting the phone back in my pocket. That became a pattern. "I'm sorry. I wish I could help. Things are tight." I stopped asking after a while. I found a cheap room online. Cash only. No questions. The landlord smelled like cigarettes and never smiled. The room was small and cold. The window didn't close all the way. At night, I could hear traffic and sirens and strangers arguing outside. But it was a place where no one could tell me to leave. I found a job cleaning offices at night. The pay was low. The hours were long. But no one asked about my past. No one cared where I came from. I liked that. I worked when the buildings were empty. Just me, the sound of the vacuum, and my thoughts. I cleaned desks where people left photos of their families. Smiling faces. Vacations. Birthdays. Sometimes I had to stop for a moment because my chest felt too tight. I didn't tell anyone about my father. Or my stepmother. Or the house. I told myself it didn't matter anymore. Months passed. Then a year. I learned how to survive quietly. I ate cheap food. I wore the same clothes over and over. I learned which buses were warmest in winter. I learned how to disappear in plain sight. Sometimes I dreamed about my dad. In the dreams, he was healthy. Cooking. Laughing. Asking me why I looked so sad. I always woke up before I could answer. I tried not to think about the house. But sometimes, late at night, I imagined my stepmother sitting there alone. Drinking wine. Spending money. Living the life my father had built. I wondered if she ever thought about me. Then I hated myself for even caring. One afternoon, I ran into someone from my old neighborhood. She looked surprised to see me. Asked how I was doing. "Oh, you know," I said. "Busy." She nodded. Then said, "Your stepmom sold the car, right? And the lake place too?" My heart stopped. "The lake place?" I asked. "Yeah. After your dad passed. She said she wanted a fresh start." I smiled and pretended that was news to me. Then I went home and sat on my bed for hours, staring at the wall. The lake place was where my dad and I used to go every summer. Where he taught me how to fish. Where we talked late at night when everything else felt wrong. I realized then that she wasn't just erasing me. She was erasing him. That night, for the first time, anger cut through the numbness. But I still didn't fight back. I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was allowed to want. I didn't even know if I had the right. So I kept working. Kept surviving. Kept my head down. Years passed that way. I grew older. Harder. Quieter. And I thought that was how the story would end. Until one afternoon, my phone rang. A number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. But something told me to pick up. "Hello?" I said. "Is this," the man paused, checking something. "Is this the child of my father's name?" My throat went dry. "Yes," I said slowly. "This is his attorney," the voice continued. "I've been trying to reach you for a long time." I sat down hard on the edge of the bed. "There's something you need to know," he said. "About your stepmother. And about a mistake she made." And in that moment, everything I thought was over quietly began to come back to life. That I didn't say anything for a few seconds after he told me who he was. An attorney. My father's attorney. The room felt smaller suddenly. The air thicker. I pressed my phone harder against my ear, like the voice might disappear if I loosened my grip. I thought everything was handled," I said. There was a pause on the other end. Papers rustled. "That's what your stepmother wanted everyone to believe," he said carefully. "But things aren't always what they seem." I swallowed. He told me to come to his office the next day. I almost laughed. I told him I work nights. That I didn't have a car. That I wasn't sure this was even real. He didn't rush me. "I've been trying to reach you for years," he said. "Your contact information was changed. Removed, actually." That word stayed with me. Removed. I didn't sleep that day. I went to work like normal, cleaned the same desks, emptied the same trash cans. But my hands were shaking the whole time. My mind kept going back to the house. To the locked doors. To the papers she moved when she thought I wasn't looking. In the morning, I took 2 buses to the office. The building was old. Quiet. It smelled like paper and dust and coffee that had been sitting too long. The kind of place where time moved slowly. The attorney was older than I expected. Gray hair. Soft voice. He looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "You look just like your father," he said. That almost broke me. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were documents I had never seen before. My name was there. Over and over. My father had updated his will years before he got sick. After a fight. After something he had finally noticed. He had left specific instructions. Assets. Accounts. A trust meant only for me. He had done it quietly. He had trusted his wife to honor it. She didn't, the attorney said. My stepmother had filed paperwork claiming I was no longer in contact. That I had chosen to leave. That I wasn't dependent. She had listed herself as the sole heir in places she shouldn't have been able to. She moved fast, he added. Too fast. I stared at the pages until the words blurred. "So, it's gone?" I asked. "No," he said. "That's the thing. She made a mistake. A legal one. A big one. She sold property that was never fully transferred to her. She accessed funds that were protected. She assumed no one would question it because you were gone. Because you were quiet. Because you didn't fight." My hands clenched in my lap. All those nights. All those years. All that silence. She thought it meant I didn't exist. The attorney looked at me carefully. "If you want," he said, "we can challenge everything." I didn't answer right away. Part of me still felt small. Still felt like the kid standing in the hallway with a suitcase. Still heard her voice telling me I didn't belong. "What happens if I do nothing?" I asked. He didn't sugarcoat it. "She keeps everything." I nodded slowly. Then I surprised myself. "No," I said. "I don't want to fight." He blinked. "I just want the truth on record," I continued. "I want it written down somewhere that I wasn't nothing." He smiled, just a little. "That," he said, "might be the hardest thing for her to face." The process took time. Months. Letters. Court filings. I kept living my quiet life while something much bigger moved behind the scenes. One day, I got a notification that made my hands shake. She had been served. I imagined her face when she opened that envelope. The confusion. The anger. The fear. For the first time, I wasn't invisible. She called me that night. I hadn't heard her voice in years. "What is this?" she snapped. "Why are you doing this?" I held the phone away from my ear for a second. Then brought it back. "I didn't do anything," I said. "I just stopped disappearing." She laughed, sharp and cold. "You think you deserve something," she said. "After everything your father did for you?" I closed my eyes. "He didn't do things for me," I said quietly. "He did them because I was his child." Silence. Then she hung up. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done being afraid. And I finally understood something important. I never lost everything. She just took it before I knew I could ask for it back. After she hung up on me, I sat there for a long time without moving. The room was quiet except for the hum of the heater. My phone lay face down on the bed like it had done something wrong. My heart was still beating too fast, but for the first time in years, it wasn't fear. It was something else. Pressure. Like the truth had finally started to push back. The letters started coming after that. Thick envelopes. Legal language. Words I had to read twice. Sometimes 3 times. I didn't understand all of it, but I understood enough. She was scared. My attorney explained things slowly. Patiently. Like he knew I still felt like I didn't belong in rooms like this. She assumed no one would challenge her, he said during one meeting. People like her always do. I imagined her sitting at the same kitchen table where she told me to leave. Opening letters. Realizing the past wasn't as buried as she thought. She tried to control the story. She told relatives I was greedy. She told neighbors I had abandoned my father. She told anyone who would listen that she had done her best. Some of those people reached out to me. Not to apologize. Just to ask questions that felt like accusations. Why now? Why didn't you speak up earlier? She said you didn't want anything to do with the family. Family. That word still felt strange in my mouth. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I had learned that silence can be powerful when it's chosen. In court documents, her version of events started to crack. Dates didn't line up. Signatures appeared where they shouldn't have. Statements contradicted earlier filings. She had rushed. She had assumed speed would protect her. It didn't. There was a hearing scheduled. Just a procedural one, they said. But I couldn't sleep the night before. I kept seeing my father's face. Wondering what he would think if he saw me now. Sitting in clean clothes I barely recognized as mine. Walking into a courtroom instead of cleaning one. The courtroom smelled like old wood and paper. Cold air. Everything echoed. I sat at the table beside my attorney and folded my hands together so no one would see them shaking. Then she walked in. She looked smaller than I remembered. Older. Her hair was perfect, but her eyes kept moving. When she saw me, her face changed for just a second. Shock. Then anger. Then something close to panic. She didn't look away. Neither did I. She leaned toward her lawyer and whispered quickly. He nodded, but his jaw tightened. That gave me a strange, quiet satisfaction. When the judge spoke, her voice was calm and steady. She asked questions my stepmother couldn't answer cleanly. She asked why certain assets were sold without proper transfer. Why notices weren't sent. Why a dependent child wasn't listed. Each question felt like a crack spreading across glass. My stepmother's answers grew shorter. Sharper. I believed. I was told. I assumed. The judge raised an eyebrow. Assumptions, it turned out, weren't enough. Afterward, outside the courtroom, my stepmother walked straight toward me. Her lawyer tried to stop her. She ignored him. You think you've won something, she hissed. You always needed someone else to fight your battles. I looked at her closely. Really looked. She wasn't powerful anymore. She was loud. Defensive. Cornered. I didn't win anything, I said. You just lost control. Her face twisted. This is about money, she said. It always was with you. I shook my head slowly. No, I said. This is about you pretending I didn't exist. For a moment, she looked like she might say something else. Then she turned and walked away. The process dragged on. More filings. More evidence. More people realizing they had believed her too easily. Things from the past resurfaced. Emails. Notes. Dates that told a different story. She stopped calling me. I stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. I noticed changes in myself. I slept better. I stood straighter. I spoke without apologizing first. One afternoon, my attorney called. They're pushing for a settlement, he said. I closed my eyes. What does that mean? I asked. It means she knows she can't win. I thought about the house. The suitcase. The years I spent thinking I was nothing. Let it go to the end, I said. He paused. Are you sure? Yes, I said. I waited long enough. That night, I dreamed about my father again. He didn't say anything. He just sat there, watching me, calm and quiet. And for the first time, I woke up without feeling like I had failed him. The end was getting closer. And she knew it. The final hearing was on a Tuesday morning. I remember that because the sky was gray, and the air felt heavy, like it might rain but never quite decided to. I stood outside the courthouse for a moment longer than necessary, just breathing. My hands were steady this time. That surprised me. I used to shake at the smallest confrontation. Used to apologize before I even spoke. But standing there, I realized something simple and strange. I wasn't scared of her anymore. Inside, everything looked the same as before. Wood. Paper. Quiet voices. But it felt different. Like the room knew how this was going to end. She arrived late. I heard her heels before I saw her. Fast. Sharp. Angry. She didn't look at me when she sat down. Her lawyer leaned close and whispered something. She nodded without listening. When the judge entered, the room stood. And in that moment, I thought about my father. How he always stood up straight, even when he was tired. Even when he was sick. I did the same. The judge spoke calmly. No drama. No raised voice. Just facts. Dates. Documents. Mistakes. She listed them one by one. Property sold without full legal authority. Funds accessed in violation of trust conditions. Failure to notify a dependent heir. Each sentence landed quietly. But each one changed everything. My stepmother's lawyer tried to interrupt. Tried to explain. Tried to soften it. The judge raised her hand. No, she said. This is clear. Clear. That word felt heavier than anything else in the room. When the ruling came, it didn't sound like revenge. It sounded like correction. Assets were to be returned. Accounts reviewed. Penalties assessed. Not everything came back. Some things were gone forever. Sold. Spent. Lost. But enough remained. Enough to tell the truth. My stepmother didn't react right away. She just sat there, staring ahead. Then her shoulders dropped slightly, like something inside her had finally given up. When the judge finished, she looked at me. You were entitled to be informed, she said. You were entitled to be considered. I nodded. That was all I needed. Outside the courthouse, my attorney shook my hand. You did the right thing, he said. I thanked him. Then I watched him walk away, back into his world of offices and files. I stood alone on the steps. My stepmother passed by without stopping. Without a word. She looked smaller now. Not powerful. Just tired. And for the first time, I felt no anger toward her. Just distance. Weeks later, I visited the lake. The place felt quieter than I remembered. The dock creaked under my weight. The water moved slowly, like it didn't care how much time had passed. I sat there for a long time. I didn't imagine my father beside me. I didn't talk out loud. I just let myself exist in a place that had once been taken from me. I didn't move back into the old house. I didn't reclaim every object. I didn't try to rebuild the past. Some things aren't meant to be returned. Instead, I rented a small place of my own. Nothing fancy. Clean. Quiet. Mine. I bought a table. 2 chairs. A lamp that gave off warm light. I cooked simple meals. I slept through the night. I kept working for a while. Then I didn't have to anymore. The money helped. But that wasn't the victory. The victory was smaller. I stopped flinching when my phone rang. I stopped feeling guilty for taking up space. I stopped believing I was temporary. One afternoon, I found my father's old watch in a box the attorney sent me. I held it in my hand for a long time. It still worked. Still ticked. Time hadn't stopped. It had just been waiting. I never heard from my stepmother again. Not an apology. Not an explanation. And I didn't need one. She once told me I wasn't really family. But the truth is, family isn't decided by who speaks the loudest. Or who grabs things the fastest. Or who controls the room. Family is the quiet things that remain when everything else is gone. And she couldn't erase that. She couldn't erase me. I left that house with one suitcase and no fight. Years later, I walked away with my name back. And that was enough.